They laughed at her. They pointed, whispered, and doubted every step she took. Under the bright lights, in front of cameras and millions of strangers, she faced the kind of humiliation that could break even the strongest soul. All she ever wanted was a fair chance, a moment to show the world who she really was. But instead, she found herself at the center of cruel jokes and cold stares. It seemed like the whole world had made up its mind about her before she even had a chance to speak. Everyone loves a winner, but few stay when you're losing. She knew that better than anyone. Still, when the easy choice was to walk away, she did something no one expected. She stayed, she fought. Every insult, every setback, every tear she held back, she used them. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove to herself that her story wasn't going to end in defeat. In a world quick to judge and quicker to forget, she decided to make her mark in a way no one could ignore. Every late night, every silent morning where quitting seemed easier, she kept going. Her journey wasn't about revenge, it was about redemption, about standing tall even when the ground beneath her shook. Tonight, we're taking you inside her story, a story of heartbreak, courage, and a comeback so powerful, it forced the world to stop and watch. How did she turn public humiliation into a stage for her greatest triumph? And how did the girl they once mocked become the woman the world now admires? Stay with us, because her real victory is just about to begin. She wasn't born with a silver spoon or an easy path laid out in front of her. Everything she had to fight for. Growing up, the world rarely saw her, and when it did, it looked the other way. Dreams felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. But somewhere deep inside, there was a stubborn fire, a belief that even if no one else believed in her, she still could. When she first stepped into the spotlight, she wasn't ready for how harsh it would be. It wasn't just the competition she had to face, it was the critics, the doubters, the endless pressure to be perfect. One small mistake, and they were quick to label her a failure. Her every move was judged, every word twisted. It wasn't just failure they wanted to see, it was her breaking apart under the weight of their expectations. But what they didn't know was that she had been here before, just without the cameras. She had faced bigger storms in silence, when nobody was watching. This time, the world was watching, and for reasons even she didn't fully understand, that gave her strength. Somewhere in the noise, she found clarity. The battle wasn't with them, it was with herself. Still, the road ahead wasn't easy. Every day felt like a new test. Friends she thought she could trust faded away. Opportunities she had worked years for slipped through her fingers. There were nights she sat alone, wondering if they were right, if she was foolish to keep going. But giving up would mean they had won, and she wasn't ready to hand them her story so easily. As the pressure mounted and the world waited for her next fall, she was quietly preparing for something they never saw coming. The main stage wasn't the only place she was fighting battles. Behind closed doors, there were struggles nobody knew about. The pressure wasn't just from the world outside, it was inside her own mind too. Doubt crept in when she least expected it. Sometimes it was a quiet voice telling her she wasn't good enough. Other times it hit her like a wave, pulling her deeper into fear just when she thought she was finally swimming free. Every headline, every comment, every whisper about her failures weighed on her shoulders like invisible chains. As she pushed harder, cracks started to show in the places she trusted most. Some people around her, people she thought were in her corner, began to distance themselves. They said it was for her own good, but she could feel the truth. They didn't believe she could turn it around. Sponsorships started to vanish. Invitations to big events dried up. It was easier for them to walk away than to bet on someone the world had already labeled a lost cause. While the outside world expected her to crumble, she was quietly rebuilding from the inside. Training harder, studying longer, pushing her limits. She wasn't looking for overnight success. She was laying the foundation for something that would last. But the harder she worked, the bigger the target on her back seemed to grow. Rumors spread. Stories were twisted. It was no longer just about whether she could win. It became a question of whether she even deserved a second chance at all. Even a few who still believed in her wondered if the damage was too deep. Could one person really change a story the whole world thought it already knew? As the clock ticked toward her next big moment, the pressure wasn't just to perform, it was to survive. The day of her biggest test arrived faster than she could have imagined. The world was watching again, only this time the expectations were even heavier. Most people didn't believe she would make it past the first stage. The whispers grew louder, the cameras sharper, each lens capturing her every move, waiting for a misstep. She could feel the weight of every failure, every comment that said she wasn't strong enough, smart enough, or simply enough. But she didn't flinch. She had learned to live with the noise, and now she was ready to use it. As she stood in the center of it all, heart pounding against her ribs, it felt like the ground could fall away at any moment. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer pressure of everything this moment meant. It wasn't just a competition anymore. It was everything she'd have fought for. Every lonely night, every sacrifice, every bruise she hid behind a brave smile. Across the field, others prepared too, each carrying their own dreams. But none carried the kind of burden she did. For them, it was about winning. For her, it was about rewriting the story everyone thought they already knew. The odds weren't in her favor. Even the commentators hesitated, their voices filled with doubt as they spoke about her. But there was a fire in her eyes they couldn't explain, a quiet strength that even she hadn't fully understood until now. As the signal came and the moment finally began, the world seemed to slow down. Every sound faded except the beat of her own heart. This was it. No more second chances, no more time to prepare. Everything she had built, everything she had survived, all led to this one breathtaking moment, and there was no turning back. Just when it seemed like the moment was hers to claim, something unexpected happened. A last-minute rule change, announced only minutes before her performance, threw everything into chaos. The new requirements favored the others, not her. It was clear, painfully clear, that the playing field had been shifted. Whispers filled the air again, not of hope, but of certainty. They thought this would break her. They thought this was the final straw that would send her crashing down once and for all. She stood frozen for a second, her mind racing. All the careful planning, all the strategies she had practiced, had to be thrown out in an instant. The others scrambled too, but for her, the stakes were different. They had backup plans. They had teams ready to adjust at a moment's notice. She had only herself, and the stubborn belief that she could still turn it around. The pressure tightened like a vice. Every second ticking away made the mountain she had to climb even steeper. She could feel the weight of the world pressing down, daring her to quit. Even some of her few remaining supporters lowered their eyes, too afraid to watch her fall apart under the new demands. This was no longer just about winning or losing. It was about surviving humiliation yet again, on an even bigger stage. But somewhere deep inside, beyond the fear and the noise, she made a decision. If she was going down, she was going to go down fighting. No excuses, no regrets, and maybe, just maybe, she could turn even this cruel twist into the beginning of something greater. The clock kept ticking, the world kept watching, and she stepped forward, ready to face a battle that had suddenly become even bigger than anyone could have imagined. She took a deep breath and blocked everything else out. The noise, the doubt, the fear, all of it faded until there was nothing left but the moment in front of her. With the new rules in place, she had no choice but to improvise. Every step she took now wasn't something she had practiced 1,000 times. It came from instinct, from heart, from the quiet confidence she had built in the darkest corners of her journey. At first, the crowd stayed quiet, almost waiting for her to slip. She could feel their hesitation, their disbelief that she could survive this twist. But then something shifted. Step by step, move by move, she created something so raw, so powerful, that even the loudest critics started to fall silent. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't polished, but it was real. Every mistake she had ever made, every scar she carried, showed up in that performance, and somehow they made her even stronger. When she finally finished, the world stood still for a beat. And then slowly the impossible happened. Applause. Real, thunderous, undeniable applause. The same people who had doubted her, who had looked away in her worst moments, were now on their feet, unable to deny what they had just witnessed. She hadn't just survived, she had owned the moment, rewriting her story in front of the entire world. But just as victory seemed certain, a final twist came crashing in. One of the judges, known for his harshness, raised a concern. A technicality. A small error, buried deep in the chaos of the new rules, that could disqualify her. The room fell into a tense silence. Would they strip her of everything she had fought for? Or had she done enough to finally, truly win? The answer was coming, but not the one anyone expected. The judges huddled together, their decision hanging in the air like a weight no one could escape. She stood there, breathing slow and steady, her heart hammering in her chest. Deep down, she knew that no matter what happened next, she had already won in ways no scorecard could measure. After a few painful minutes, they finally turned back to the stage. The head judge stepped forward, clearing his throat before speaking. Everyone held their breath. And then, against all odds, they announced it. Her performance would stand. The technicality, they said, was overshadowed by the heart, the skill, and the courage she had shown under impossible pressure. The arena erupted. Tears welled up in her eyes as the crowd cheered, not because she was flawless, but because she was fearless. She hadn't just earned a victory, she had earned their respect. As the cameras flashed and microphones crowded around her, she stayed grounded. She spoke not about revenge or proving the world wrong, but about perseverance, about finding strength when you feel most broken. Her journey wasn't just about winning a trophy. It was about showing anyone watching that failure isn't the end. It's often the start of something even greater. Old friends who had turned away now tried to find their way back, but she had learned who truly stood beside her. Sponsorships and opportunities came flooding in, but she moved carefully, remembering what mattered most. Her story, humiliated in front of the world, only to rise higher than anyone ever expected, became a symbol of hope. In the end, she didn't just win a competition. She won back her story, her voice, and her power. And somewhere in the crowd, someone struggling quietly saw her and realized maybe their comeback was possible too.